Hello and welcome to Sylvan Mist Designs. Alright, so you've just watched me put a very basic kind of grid on this ceramic cup. Now, I was actually using just an expo marker to do this. Okay, this one happens to be the ultra fine. Doesn't necessarily have to be that one. But essentially I did want to make sure that these lines here were very dark and very prominent. The other ones, not so much. That's perfectly fine. That's why I did just kind of dots instead of actually going through and making the lines. Now, with these particular cups, I actually have a set of them. I'm going to be doing both of them, but I wanted to do at least this one first. I do want a very big, nice, fat dot here at the bottom, and that's what this is. Now, I don't have a dotting tool anywhere near this size. Okay, so I'm actually going to be using a brush. So this one is going to be basically monochrome. I'm going to be using white, gray, and black, as well as perhaps maybe some zinc and silver. But let's get started by painting this. Unfortunately, my brush skills are not fantastic, so I am going to definitely need these lines, and let's hope that I can get a nice round circle here. One of the first things that I'll mention today is that because we are painting on these glasses, I am going to be adding the glass medium to all of my paint. I know this is going to take more than one coat, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this one to dry, and then I'll tidy up some things on it as well. As I go to the next cup, do the same thing. I'm going to get the grid on it, and then I'll do the painting of the center on it too. Alright, I'm back to my first cup, and then let's fix, because I've seen that this dipped just a little. Let's see if I can't use the corner of my brush to round that out a little. The next layer that I have, so this one actually is a very light gray, and so let's see, I probably want to do a white on that. And then I'm going to go through with a 1, and we're going to get some small dots around this big circle here. So now I'm going to use some of this zinc, and again I'm going to go ahead and add some glass medium to it, but we're going to do a few larger dots so that we get our base started. For those, we're going to go into a 6. Going to get that nice and loaded up. Turn this upside down just so that it's easier to kind of hold on to, so that I'm not accidentally moving any of these. Alright, so let's go one here. Let's get another one here. I'm just following the large lines. There's the first one. I'm going to set this aside. The second one here. going to go back into the gray that I started with. I'm going to give this a quick stir. I'm going to do a 2 here on top. I know some of the ones along the edges are kind of hard to see here. I'm sure with all the rotating around that I'm doing, you will eventually get to see all of these, but the main pattern right here on the front is going to be the same as it is everywhere else. Now I'm going to do a 1.5. Let me just kind of make sure here. Yeah, 1.5. I'm going to be putting 1 dot of the 1.5 on either side of the 2. And I do find it much easier, even though I'm constantly switching back and forth between these. I do find it much easier to do it that way than to do one mug and then try to do a second one after this one has been finished. Many times I have just laid out a pattern, and for example, as I'm going through here, I would be jotting on a piece of paper. Okay, the first dot is a 6, then we have a 2, and then we have a 1.5. But even following the same exact pattern between 2, 3, or multiple other pieces, I was finding sometimes that still the pattern wasn't exactly the same. It just felt a little different. So I like to do them like this. Now, if I had enough room in front of me here, then I would actually have both of the cups laying together, and then I could just kind of go back and forth between them that way. But unfortunately, my little Lazy Susan here is not quite that large. Also, as you can see, I have underneath me here this towel. If you've watched anything I've done before, you're going to know what's under here, but essentially, anytime I'm working on glass or even my tea lights, I'm using this. Super simple DIY solution. I just had picked up some pinto beans, and I'm using those dried pinto beans here in just a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. Folded that over, and then just to make sure that nothing slips and that your eye isn't too distracted by all the beans underneath it, I've got just an old washcloth here. The old washcloth keeps anything from sweating and moving, and then I can constantly move the beans around underneath to alter the piece so it doesn't slide off. I'm gonna go back to my first mug. Okay, I'm kind of rotating between them also because by the time I get to the next step, usually these dots are going to be mostly dry. Now, obviously, except for these big number 6s, I know that they're not dry, but you know, these other ones are going to be, so I can manipulate around them easier. Okay, so now that we've got this, I'm actually using the tool that I used for my swooshes, but I flipped it around onto the 1.5 side, and I'm gonna do some swooshes around these, and that's gonna be in that same white. Over to number 2. One thing that I'm going to mention too while I'm doing this part is that the black dots that you see from the Expo marker, a lot of them are going to be covered up by dots. So just like the 6th one here, there's a big dot underneath that. So those ones I definitely don't have to worry about. However, once I get done here, oops, you know what, this first one over here, it's more like a line instead of a curve. So I'm gonna remove that. There, I'm gonna try that one again. Okay, but as I was saying, all of these, after I'm done, I am gonna take and wash this so those come off. Again, it's just an Expo marker, like a dry erase marker, so that's not gonna cause me any problems. I do like using the Expo marker to mark out grids on things that are opaque, right? If there is anything transparent, glass, you know, see-through glass jars, anything like that, it sounds like a great idea, but obviously if you're going to be able to see through to the other side, you're not going to want to do that. But it is a nice little way to mark a grid on these slick surfaces. I actually use that same method on some of the galvanized steel items that I had painted. Some bookmarks and things like that. Worked perfectly. So now that we've got both of the cups with that on, again, I'm going to switch back to cup number 1. Okay, let's use actually some of the gray at this point, and let's see. I want to get some additional swooshes in here, but I probably want them more or less up here. Let's start on the face of the cup, and let's kind of put it, I want it between, these two elements so that I can actually draw a swoosh out. I don't necessarily want to go down completely between them. But let's see, let's experiment just a little bit. I'm thinking probably about here. How about that? I think that works. I have a little space here to work with because unfortunately, just because of the arc, I think I did not get every single one of these completely equal to one another, so I don't want it to be too obvious as I go through. So that's our way of adjusting the symmetry on this. So let's go ahead and get another one in. And then as you can see here, I'm putting them between this series of dots. I'm going to be going back to the first cup again now that those ones are done. This one was giving me quite a bit of trouble, and I kind of had to go in and fill it. And you can see there that there's kind of a little bit of a ripple in the paint. So what I'm going to do is come back in and essentially do that one over on top of it, and I'm just going to make sure to coat this really, really well with paint so that when I go back over it, we're gonna hide any of those little lines that we created. Okay, there we go. All right, and then I'm gonna let that dry. The next thing that I'm gonna do is a set of dots, walked dots over these. I'm gonna start very similar to the top of these here. I'm actually probably gonna start that in 3. Yeah, a 3 is gonna work just fine. And we're gonna alternate back into this zinc here. Go down a full size to the 2 to start the dots. As you'll notice, I'm actually only going 6 dots around the outside here. I am not pulling the dots all the way down to the tip of the swoosh. Now I'm going to come back in, and this is with the 0.5, and we're going to finish off the dots here in the end. One of the reasons I do this separately is because if there is any instance, like maybe here, where things are a little close, maybe the symmetry got just slightly off, I have better control. I can end the dots where I need to and make sure they're truly small enough to fit. So there are the 2 mugs thus far. Now for me personally, I'm going to be taking a break right now. I usually only paint for about an hour, hour and a half. By that point, paint in my palette's starting to dry out, and I'm going to need a little bit of a break as it is, just to rest my eyes. So I will probably pick these back up tomorrow, so I will see you then. For you, it's just going to be a short blink of an eye. For me, it'll be about 24 hours. I'll see you then. So I'm back today, and as you can see here, I have actually laid down just 1 additional dot over these swooshes. Now that was actually a number 5, and then I'm going to take a 4, and I'm going to go ahead and put 1 more dot on that, just so that the row is even now with the swooshes. It's time for some additional swooshes, and I think for the top row of this, I'm going to go ahead and do multiple swooshes along the lines here. I'm going to actually start out with the 7, and I'm going to be again using the 2 tool method, and we're going to start here with the zinc. I'm going to be taking these ones really slow because the paint already, just like on the white ones that I just did, is already starting to want to run down the side of the cup here. So that's another good reason why I have this little bean bag. That way I can actually sit this in such a way so that it won't run. Okay. This one has already gotten a little bit heavy on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it. Let's take it from this side and then bring that down. There we go. Now for this part, I'm probably going to be taking a number of breaks. You might see quite a few cuts, just so that you're not having to wait around for me while these dry a bit. Now for this one, because the handle is right here, I'm actually going to skip this one in the pattern. Now this particular one, the arc would have carried this underneath the handle somewhere about here, but I did not want to skip this one, but since it was going to be so far under the handle, I did just go ahead and try to line it up the best I could, and it's just going to be a short one. The one on the bottom though, I can do normally. Alright, this one at least is dry, and this one is almost dry on the first one, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the second set of swooshes. Again, the first one here was a 7, and I'm going to go down now to a 5, and we're actually going to go into the light gray on this one again. Alright, so we're almost finished with this. For me, it's been actually a couple of days. I took a break, maybe 2 or 3 days on this particular project, and I've got my palette reloaded again, and we're going to get just the final touches on this. Now, I think what I'm going to do, I wanted to play around a little bit with the sizing of these particular swooshes. One of the things that is kind of hard to get out of the habit of is starting large, and then each swoosh down just gets progressively smaller. Very logical in its pattern, used everywhere, and I'm very, very, very guilty of doing it that way. But what I really want to try with this one too, again, is just experimenting with the sizing. So I want to try a smaller swoosh here, and then perhaps make another larger one down here, so that it gives just a little bit of a variance of the texture and the feel of how the swooshes are coming out, so it doesn't seem so chunky, because these two are actually pretty large in comparison to these swooshes here. So let's see how that works out. I think I'm gonna go with a 2 here. I think that's small enough. Oh, and I need to clean my tools. Goodness gracious. I've been so busy lately. I haven't unfortunately been paying the same attention I usually do to my tools, and it really shows, doesn't it? Okay, so we have the zinc, we have the light gray, and then I'm gonna go into a white for this one. This one's maybe even a little too thin just in comparison to the second one. So I'm gonna go down and just make that a little wider. Oh, I don't have enough paint on my tool yet. All right, so I'm gonna put some on the tip. All right, now that I've got those on, I'm gonna go back up to a larger size. Let's see here, 3.5, I'm thinking. Oh, actually, you know what? We might be able to do a 4. Yeah, I think a 4 would be okay. All right, and we're gonna go with that dark zinc. Okay, so for this one, what I'm gonna do is put the dot, I'm gonna kind of nestle it in here. Okay. Essentially what I'm looking at is I'm kind of imagining just a straight line across the bottom here. And so I just wanted to kind of put this dot as close as I could get it so that this line was under the bottom. Okay, so now because I want to do this, I want to just drag this in a straight line and then fill in that gap. Now this dot is, since it's quite a bit bigger, it's going to take a little bit to dry. So I'm just going to have to be a little slow working around the outsides here. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are the ones that can sit flat. And then I'm going to take and go to the other cup and let those ones dry before I start tipping it over to get to the outer edges on the first one. Now here, for example, there's not quite enough room to do a 4. So I am making adjustments as I go here based on the design. Especially here, like there's really nothing I can do there. So I'm just gonna skip over to this one and this one here. One of the things I wanted to do at this point while this other stuff is drying is I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of silver because it is a little dark in some areas. So I'm going to add a little bit of silver. I'm going to add just a tiny dot of my glass medium to that silver. All right, and let's take a look here first. I think that might, I'm going to go with a 4 on this. The other thing I wanted to do is I've noticed how dark these are looking, these walks around here. So what I'm thinking is, let me grab this tool actually, and I'm just going to do the 0.5 and see if I can't get a couple of micro dots around the edges with the same silver. Like I said, all I'm trying to do is just kind of lighten that up a little bit. So let's see. All right, then I think I'm gonna add a dot of silver on these whites that are hanging out here. I'm gonna go in with a 5. It just adds even more shine to this, doesn't it? The other thing that I want to figure out is I want to do a very small something on the handle just to kind of wrap the pattern up a little bit. It's really easy for me just to want to do, say, this swoosh pattern there. I'm not sure if that's going to be the prettiest or the most unique thing that I've ever done. I'm going to go back in with a 1, and then I'm going to put an additional dot here, as you can see. Again, just touching up these little edges. It certainly does soften it just a tiny bit. All these little itty bitty details. Yeah, I think I like that. That does help. One of the other things that I've been contemplating is adding a row inside here of dots. And I've been hesitating just a little bit because I'm not 100% sure that when I put the dots in the middle, if they're going to match the pattern well enough, because I would prefer to do them a little larger instead of having another set of almost micro dots there, like maybe a size like 1.5 or 2. I would rather go to something like a 3. This is even a 3.5. I could definitely try it. Like I said, just a little bit nervous that it might ruin things a little. Let me get a couple of dots down and kind of see what it looks like. I'm gonna go with the Zinc. That's not bad. And then I think what I'll do is do a set of micro dots underneath them to kind of finish that. Now for the micro dots I was talking about, let's do the same thing as we did on top here essentially. To a 5. Actually, I can have both of these together now. this is a 3. Not my best work on the handles, let me tell you what, but I think it's good. Okay, so I do have to go in now and take off the little black dots, and as you can see here, just go in here, it comes right off. So once this I know is completely dry, I'm just going to take a soft rag and wipe over everything and just make sure it all looks great. Thank you guys for hanging with me today. As always, if you've made it this far, please make sure that you're subscribed. Hit the button below and make sure you like and drop me a comment if there's something else you want to see in the future. You guys take care and have a fantastic day.